And all I could think as I pretended to flirt with the camera was, what if he finds out? Would Andreas look at me the same way? Or could it be that this secret would make me lose the only look I ever truly desired? Chapter 17, Adonis Live. Tomas's point of view. Camera's red light came on with a barely audible click. The live stream had begun. On the screen, comments poured in like a flurry of excitement. Hearts, emojis, exaggerated compliments, it was always like that in the first few seconds. I was used to it, but inside I never stopped feeling a strange warmth. It was like going back to a place where no one knew my real name, and yet everyone wanted to see me. Hi, my dears. My voice came out soft, sweet, almost childlike. A tone that wasn't part of my everyday life, but it was natural there. Part of the character. There, I was Adonis. A name stolen from mythology, but here it belonged to a gentle boy with a velvety voice and a gaze that toyed with innocence and provocation. Not a god of raw beauty, but of irresistible sweetness. I straightened the black bangs on my wig, pulled one of my stockings up to mid-thigh, and smiled for the camera. Did you miss me? Because I did, I blinked slowly, just to see the reaction explode in the chat. My God, he's online. Marry me, Adonis. You are an angel. I spent everything I had just for this. A notification rang. A generous tip had been deposited into the platform account. Soon after, another. And another. The number of viewers was rising rapidly. My phone, discreetly clipped to the monitor, displayed the donations in real time. Some came with messages. So you can buy more cute socks, sparkling heart. That smile is worth every penny. You saved my day, Adonis. My body relaxed. Tension from school, the kiss, the conversation with Andreas, all of it was behind me. Adonis was light. Fluid. Welcome to another chapter of The Smiling Ghost. Today I'm going to narrate chapters 17, 18, and 19. I hope you enjoy it. He existed to offer comfort. He was kind to strangers. He blew kisses to strangers with usernames like SirDaddy93 and Cheramachi. You guys are so sweet to me. Seriously, I don't even know how to thank you. I touched my lips with my fingers and blew a kiss to the camera. The chat went crazy. It was a game. A silent dance between me and hundreds of invisible faces. I knew what they wanted. And I knew how to give it. But today there was something different about me. My smile wavered between genuine and forced. Behind the sparkle in my eyes and the high-pitched voice, there was another presence in my mind. Andrew. I wondered for the first time how he would see me like this. Not with judgment, but with curiosity. Or fear. Or desire. I shifted in my chair, pulled a pink pillow onto my lap, and hugged it, resting my chin on it. I glanced sideways, shyly, as if seeking attention without appearing needy. Today was an intense day, you know? But you always make everything easier. The money kept coming in. But I wasn't even paying much attention anymore. The digital applause was part of the routine, but my mind was stuck in the reality I'd waited years to escape. School, I was invisible. Here, I was adored. In the classroom, I was corrected. Here, everything about me was celebrated. But what if these two worlds collided? What if Adonis stopped being just a pretty name and became a real problem? The chat called to me. Tips poured in. Hearts soared. And I, smiling in front of the camera, responded sweetly. With charm. With Adonis. But inside me, the question burned like fire. What if he finds out? Tomas stood in the middle of the room for a while, pretending to organize the books on the front shelf, just to avoid running into other teachers. He didn't want to answer questions, nor did he want to smile. The energy he'd had this morning now felt like a weight on his shoulders. At one point, Professor Lucas, the same one from the bathroom conversation, entered the room and glanced quickly in his direction. He noticed something. Is everything okay, Brand? He asked casually, but with that tone of someone who knew he wasn't. Tomas forced a smile. Just tired. Lucas nodded slowly but didn't press the point. Maybe I already knew enough. Or maybe he was sparing Tomas from having to lie anymore. When recess ended, Tomas walked slowly down the hallway to the next classroom. Students were trickling in, chattering loudly, dropping backpacks on chairs. There was a certain peace in observing this teenage chaos, because they knew nothing. To them, he was just the assistant, a quiet guy with a bookish face and a calm voice. They didn't know about the kiss. Conversation at the restaurant. The strange pain in his chest that he was trying to swallow. Andreas entered soon after, as always, punctual, composed, with the same impeccable posture of someone who feels nothing. The students fell silent at his presence. Some respected him, others feared him. He looked at the board, not at Tomas. Gentlemen, turn to page 42. Let's continue our analysis of the text. Tomas stood still for a second, waiting for some reassuring look. Anything. But Andreas didn't say a word to him. He didn't give him a task, he didn't make a request, he didn't acknowledge his presence. It was as if he had become invisible again. During class, Tomas approached a student who seemed lost in the text. The girl, with attentive eyes and a pen between her fingers, seemed reluctant to raise her hand. Are you having any questions? Tomas asked gently, bending down to speak to her in a low voice. She nodded, and he began to explain the passage, pointing out key verbs and using simple examples. When he finished, the girl smiled in relief. Now I understand. Thank you, Professor. Tomas smiled back. That at least still made sense. But as he stood, he felt Andreas's gaze on him, quick, hard, as if he'd spotted something amiss. Tomas looked away. Again, no words. No scolding. But also no acknowledgement. At the end of class, as the students filed out excitedly at the bell, Tomas gathered papers from the back of the room. Andreas was already putting away his books, tucking his briefcase under his arm as usual. Tomas took a deep breath. He knew he shouldn't, but he tried one more time. If I've done something wrong, he began, his voice controlled, I'd rather you told me. Andreas didn't even stop arranging the books. I've said what I had to say. Just do your part, and everything will be fine. Cold. Precise. Deadly. Tomas didn't answer. He just nodded, swallowing hard. This was his last attempt of the day. He walked slowly out of the room, feeling a hole grow in his chest. On his way back to the teacher's lounge, he came across a mirror on the wall. He stopped. He looked at himself. There he was, glasses on his face, backpack askew, shirt slightly wrinkled, expression exhausted. But behind it all, he knew. He knew what was inside. He wasn't just a sidekick. He wasn't just an insecure kid trying to prove himself. He was someone who carried secrets, desires, hurts, and a real desire to be seen. Not just noticed. Actually seen. But at that moment, none of that mattered. 'Cause Andreas had decided to erase everything that had happened. As if the previous night had been just an emotional diversion. And worse, as if Tomas were nobody. When he finally got home at the end of the day, he dropped his backpack on the couch and went straight to his room. He didn't turn on his computer. He didn't log into his blog. He didn't go live. He just lay down, facing the wall, and stayed there in silence. Thinking. Feeling. And trying to understand how something that seemed so sincere could disappear so quickly. As if nothing had happened. I can't stop thinking about you. Tomas stared at him, not running away this time. Then stop pretending you don't feel it. And for the first time since that kiss, Andreas didn't respond with silence. He didn't respond coldly. He responded with a look that said everything his mouth still couldn't say. Chapter 18, The Truth in Waiting. Andreas stood there for a moment, silent, his gaze still fixed on Tomas's, as if he were about to cross a line he himself had spent his entire life trying not to cross. But then he took a deep breath, took a step back, as if pulling himself back to the surface. "Give me a day." His voice was firm but heavy. "See you tomorrow. I need to think. Organize all this in my head. Thursday will be decisive." Tomas nodded slowly. There was something in his tone that didn't sound like sorry, but like "I promise." It was the closest thing to hope he could muster at that moment. "Tomorrow, then," Tomas replied, trying to remain calm. "I hope so." Without another word, he left the room. The drive home seemed longer than usual. The city was still moving as usual. Horns, footsteps, hurried voices, but everything around them seemed blurry, as if the world were suspended in time. Upon entering the apartment, he dropped his backpack on the floor and went straight to the computer. He sat down, turned on the screen, and took a deep breath. There was something I didn't want to do, but I had to. Something that had been hammering at his mind for days, and now he could no longer ignore it. He opened the browser and typed, "Tom Evans London University accident. Tightness in the chest." The screen loaded quickly. The first headline appeared. "College student dies in tragic car accident on way to campus." Tom Elliot Evans, 22, English literature student. Tomas clicked. His heart was beating too fast as he read the article. Young Tom was well liked by his classmates, known for his intelligence, charisma, and involvement in the college's cultural projects. His boyfriend, whose name was not released, declined to comment on the incident. There was a picture. Tom. It was like looking at a distorted reflection. The same face shape. The same crooked smile. Even the way he held a book in the photo looked familiar. The only striking difference was his hair. Tom wore it slightly longer without bangs. And of course, no glasses. Tomas froze. How could two people be so alike? It was frightening. The more than that, it was inexplicable. He read the article to the end. Then he opened other tabs. He searched old social networks, forums, forgotten blogs. He wanted anything. Clue. A detail. A lost surname. But nothing connected that boy to his life. Nothing that explained that absurd similarity. And then a thought appeared like a bolt from the dark. What if... Tomas leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on the wall in front of him. What if I have a long-lost brother? A twin no one told me about? The idea sounded like something out of a cheap drama. But it made more sense than he cared to admit. His mind went far away. He knew almost nothing about his parents. He knew they died in an accident when he was only 8 years old. He was raised by his maternal grandmother in a small house in North London. She was loving and caring, but always avoided talking about the past. "That doesn't matter now, my dear," she would say when Tomas asked too many questions. He never had any siblings. At least he never knew of any. But now, with all this, how can he ignore that possibility? He returned to the computer, this time searching for information about his own parents. His father's name. His mother's. Old records. But the more he searched, the more difficult it became. Few files were available. Nothing that mentioned another child. But a doubt was firmly planted there. Did my family hide something from me? Tomas glanced at the corner of the screen. Tom's photo was still open in a tab. He zoomed in. And for the first time, he didn't feel awkward staring. It was like looking for yourself in another life. A life that might have been stolen. Or separated. Or forgotten. He closed his laptop slowly. He got up from his chair and went to the window. Outside, night was beginning to swallow the city buildings. The lights came on one by one. Cars drove on, unaware that inside someone was wondering if everything they'd experienced so far was just half of a larger story. And deep down, a certainty grew. Tomorrow, when Andreas gives me his answer, I'm going to look for mine too. Thank you for watching this chapter so far. What do you think of this story? Comment below, I'd love to hear it. Subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next chapter. Hugs with chocolate and strawberries.